The 2021 Los Angeles Lakers are possibly one of the biggest enigmas in NBA history. Not only did they win the finals last year, but they were able to retool the team with better options along their line, like replacing Rajon Rondo, who was an aging point guard, with Dennis Schroeder, who was coming off of a year where he was second in Sixth Man of the Year voting. And even though they lost Dwight Howard, who was one of their main centers last year, they replaced him with a guy who did win Sixth Man of the Year in Montrezl Harrell. This is why, again, they were the preseason favorites to win the NBA Finals, and even into the year when the Brooklyn Nets added James Harden and all the other moves that went on around the league, the Los Angeles Lakers were still atop, at least in my opinion and in many other people's opinions. They were atop of the preseason and, mid-season rankings when it come to the NBA Finals odds. And I'm not going to bore you about how this team went from having the best odds at winning the NBA Finals to how they're kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of their finals odds, because everybody knows what happens. It was the injuries. It was, just the lack of cohesion that they had for this team so far in the year. However, what I am going to talk about is why many people have placed the Los Angeles Lakers. Many people even say that the Los Angeles Lakers aren't even going to get out of the play-in round, which is one of the stupidest things I think I've ever heard. But a lot of people don't have the Lakers as one of their top finals contenders anymore, not only because of the fact that the Los Angeles Lakers have had a bad health history this year, but because of teams like Phoenix, because of teams like Utah, because of teams like the Clippers, who have taken that next step in terms of being a top 3 team in the Western Conference in, the Los Angeles Lakers' absence. I think something that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, when it comes to what injuries like losing LeBron James for a majority of the season or losing Anthony Davis for a majority of the season, what that really does for the Los Angeles Lakers. Yes, that has derailed their hopes of becoming the number 1 seed in the West. We understand that. But what it also does is it forces guys like Alex Caruso, or it forces guys like Talen Horton-Tucker, or it forces guys like Andre Drummond, who are new to the team. It forces guys who are not used to being able to, or not used to being in a role of them being the focal point or them being a major component of the offense and defensive side of the ball. Now, while they're not used to that in LeBron James' absence, when LeBron James does come back, I think he's going to play today against the Rockets. When LeBron James is back, he's going to be playing with guys who are at least used to playing for a 3 to 4 week stretch. They're used to playing without LeBron, and they're used to playing without having to just automatically give the ball up to him, because it's not really a slight to LeBron. He's the best player to ever play basketball. But what that does do to your team is it kind of only makes one guy the focal point of the offense. And to LeBron James' credit, throughout his career, he's always been able to do that effectively. But at the same time, now that he's playing with guys like Talen Horton-Tucker, like Alex Caruso, like Wesley Matthews, like Andre Drummond, who have been forced to step up in the past couple of weeks in his and Anthony Davis's absence, now he's going to be playing with guys who are playing a little bit more freely, playing a little bit better than they probably were when LeBron James was still playing earlier in the season. And that in total is just going to make this team better going into the playoffs. Now, this affects the head coach Frank Vogel as well, because this is going to be the first time in his career while he's coaching the Los Angeles Lakers that he's had to go through a stretch like this without playing with LeBron James. LeBron James played pretty much every single game last year. I don't know. He maybe missed 1 or 2 games. But this is the first time in Frank Vogel's Los Angeles Lakers tenure that he has not had LeBron James to just basically say, all right, ISO, put him in the post, do whatever he wants. He's had to step up his own game as well, not only in LeBron James' absence, but he's had to step up his game in Anthony Davis' absence as well. And I think when you look at it that way, you can kind of see that this is the toughest task he's had to probably face in his whole coaching career. Maybe second to going against LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals when he was the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. But playing and coaching this Los Angeles Lakers team without your 2 main guys, and also a majority of that without Dennis Schroeder as well, he's had to do some things that maybe it's questionable when you look at it immediately, but you can't deny that he's won, as the coach, they've won some pretty big games. They beat the New York Knicks last night in overtime. They've had some big wins over these past few weeks without LeBron and without Anthony Davis, and I think that part cannot go understated when you're talking about Frank Vogel and his coaching staff. A month and 2 days ago, the Los Angeles Lakers took down the Brooklyn Nets by a whopping 25 points in Brooklyn, not only without LeBron James, but also without Anthony Davis. This team has shown under Frank Vogel's leadership that they're not going to just lay down. They did lose a bunch of games. I understand that. But when you look at the games that they did win when they didn't have AD and LeBron, I think at least just looking at it at that perspective, Frank Vogel has done an incredible job over these past few weeks. Now, one guy that I really want to highlight in this, talking about the Los Angeles Lakers without AD and LeBron, the one guy that I really want to highlight is Kyle Kuzma. And I understand that a lot of people, and especially Lakers fans, are probably going to say, well, Kyle Kuzma's been really inconsistent lately. He followed up a 24-point game with a 6-point game, then had 25, then had 4, then had 23 last night. I understand that that looks like it's inconsistent, and I understand that it is inconsistent. But if you look at what Kyle Kuzma has been doing since about the middle of February, or I guess the start of March, he's scored in double digits in a majority of the games. I think there's only like 4 or 5 games that he did not score in double digits. And that just goes back into the whole thing that when LeBron James does come back for the Lakers and when AD is back to playing at his, peak level, Kyle Kuzma being that third guy that can go for 15 to 20 points in a game, that cannot be understated. That cannot be, and especially when you look at the fact that Kyle Kuzma doesn't really, when he scores, a lot of the times he's doing it not really on his own, but he's not being set up in a traditional sense like many guys do when they play with LeBron James. A lot of what Kyle Kuzma does is he's stand-up shooting or he's making his own shot. So with that in mind, Kyle Kuzma, when he's playing with LeBron again, he probably will be coming off the bench, but he will be that guy that can be looked at by LeBron James as a consistent threat to not only put points on the board, but just be a effective member of the team that's on the floor. Now, the ultimate thing that I was saving for last with this conversation, it's one that, I don't really think I have to explain it very much, but when LeBron James comes back to this lineup, when LeBron James starts playing again for the Los Angeles Lakers today, you're probably going to see it. You're probably going to see it against the Houston Rockets, especially. It's LeBron freaking James. Like, he came back after a whole month of not playing basketball, a month and a half basically. And I understand that 16 points is not a lot for LeBron James, but in 31 minutes, putting up 16 points, 2 steals, 7 assists, 8 rebounds, and then following that up against the Raptors with 19 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, like in 2 games in which he was not up to his own standard in terms of probably his conditioning, probably his, just sense on the court. In 2 games where he was not up to his peak levels, he did that. That's enough for many people to be very happy about with a normal player. But since it's LeBron James doing it, nobody's going to talk about it. Nobody's going to say, well, he played a great game. We're just going to say that's a below average game for LeBron James. Also going into it with LeBron James, this is a guy who, when he plays today against the Houston Rockets, he's going to crack the 50,000 minute club in terms of how many career minutes he's played in the regular season. However, even though that does seem like a lot of minutes for a 37-year-old guy, or I guess 36-year-old, he's going to be going into this playoff stretch with the least amount of minutes played in a season in his entire career. Even throwing in last year when the season stopped due to the COVID shortage, even the year before that when he didn't play the whole year due to his groin injury. This is going to be the least amount of minutes ever played by LeBron James in a season. So he's going to be at least, in terms of a wear and tear sort of deal when you look at how players get hurt during the season and how they just wear down during the regular season. This is going to be the freshest LeBron James is ever going to be going into a playoff stretch. And I think that part can't be understated either. All in all, I think if I was a betting man, the Los Angeles Lakers at plus 300 odds to win the NBA Finals, I don't know if that's really a bad bet. I think that's one of the best bets that you could actually make in the NBA in terms of a finals appearance or win. I understand that the Clippers are really good. I understand that Phoenix is really good. I understand that Utah is really good. Nobody on Utah has ever won anything. Nobody on Utah has ever, Mike Conley has never. Memphis was really good. They were a second round consistent threat when he was with the Grizzlies, but they never won anything. They always ran into the buzzsaw known as the Golden State Warriors, or they ran into the Spurs, or they ran into the Thunder. Donovan Mitchell, yeah, he's a really good player, but he's going to be coming off of his own injury. Rudy Gobert, I don't know what he's doing for you in a playoff series when it comes to stretching the floor or being a modern big in today's NBA, which he does his own thing. Rudy Gobert doesn't need to be a modern big. He is a very effective player at what he does playing non-modern basketball. The Phoenix Suns, Chris Paul, what has Chris Paul shown you in the playoffs to ever... I mean, I understand a lot of it has to do with injuries. I understand that a lot of it has to do with other guys not stepping up, but Chris Paul's never won anything either. Devin Booker is a really good player. Devin Booker is one of the best players in the NBA. But the Phoenix Suns were really bad with him being one of the best players in the NBA before Chris Paul got there. A lot of the guys on the Phoenix Suns are really young, like Cam Johnson or like anyone that's on that team right now, Mikal Bridges. And then the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Clippers, they have their own kind of injury bugs that they've got going on. And I think the Denver Nuggets have a really bad head coach as well, in Mike Malone. So when you look at that and everything that I've said, the Lakers, all the guys lately have had to step up. All the role players have had to increase their roles. I think Frank Vogel, I wouldn't necessarily say that he should get your vote for Coach of the Year, but looking at the games that they've won without LeBron and without Anthony Davis and the fashion that they've won some of those games, I think that, him going into a playoff series with that experience against whether it be the Clippers or whether it be the Nuggets or whether it be the Jazz or the Suns or whoever they go against, and once they finally get LeBron James back and Anthony Davis playing up to his top capabilities, this is going to be a team that I really don't think it would be a surprise to see them win the NBA Finals again. And I would say that they should be the favorites still going into the playoffs. With all that being said, that's going to be the video from me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback from you all at this point is much appreciated. Yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.